Hey guys, Luna here with a new video, and today the video is going to be a bit different. The thing is that the other day I was scrolling through YouTube, seeing what the algorithm throws at me, and I came across a playlist. The name was 80s City Pop Japanese Music. Now I love Japanese music from the 80s. I believe that if Japanese music ever hit a peak, it was in the 1980s. A lot of female Japanese artists were releasing this particular kind of music that today is known as city pop music. The reason for that is basically because this music represents really well what Tokyo was like, and the main cities of Japan were like back in the 80s. Even though I didn't live there, actually I wasn't alive. But even though it's called city pop, it doesn't really have many pop elements. It's more than anything jazz music with funk music. So I clicked on the video to see what artists were featured on this playlist, and I was really disappointed. I think they missed many of the greatest songs from the greatest albums from the greatest artists around that time. So I said, why don't I make a video where I introduce people to this kind of music? Maybe the video is going to be a bit short, but I don't care. It's an extra video for the week. Deal with it. Now, I always say this in the videos, but this is only my personal opinion, so if you have your own, leave it down below in the comments and I'll make sure to check it out. I would like to know what's your favorite album from this genre. These albums that I'm going to talk about now are not in a particular ranking. There's just 3 albums that I enjoy, and I hope you can enjoy them as well after you've watched this video. So yeah, let's get on with the first album. I'm not gonna lie now, I have the names of the artists written on a paper because I don't want to get them wrong. I listen to these albums very often, but after some time all the Japanese names just become a big blur, like I can't tell one from the other, or I'm just bad at pronouncing it, so I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I don't have any excuse, I just don't really know how to pronounce his name, so I wrote them so I can say them correctly, okay? So don't be mad. The first album we're going to talk about today is Maria Takeuchi, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, Variety, released in 1984. Now, this is not the best example of a city pop album like it's called. This album is actually just a mix between different genres. It has bossa nova, it has ballads, the 80s kind of ballads. It does have a lot of jazz music. Actually, the main focus of the album is jazz music, and it doesn't have many synths, so it doesn't really have that city pop style that everyone talks about in this particular playlists. But it is a really good example of how only the language can change the mood of a song. The thing is that if these songs were to be performed by an American artist or a Spanish artist, the song would be so much more romantic. It wouldn't be as groovy as this song is. And that just makes the whole difference, and it makes it so much more enjoyable. I don't know, I just think it's way better, and I love how this style fits the Japanese language so well. The bass lines in this type of albums are so important. They set up the whole mood, and in this album it's marvelous. And not only in this funky track is the bass line doing a great job, but also in the track You, Me and the Sun, I believe it's called. Maria's performance is also a really important factor in this album, because the thing is, these funky tunes the album gives you wouldn't be completed without Maria's voice. I mean, he is one of the main things that makes this album so enjoyable. And the title of the album, it's really accurate because you have a lot of variety in this album. As I said, this is not the best introduction to this particular kind of music, jazz with a bit of funk on it, but it is a really good introduction to how the Japanese language changes the whole feeling of the track and makes it way better in particular genres. It has funk, it has jazz, it has pop music, it has bossa nova, it has rock music as well, and it has a few ballads here and there. I mean, it sounds really good. This album is really something else. Definitely the first listen if you want to jump into this kind of music, and not only because of how much variety is in the album, but because it has one of the best songs in this particular style, that is Plastic Love. I'm pretty sure everyone knows that song, even if it's just only thanks to TikTok. Everyone has heard the chorus of that song. So yeah, definitely recommend this album. This album is great. So great, in fact, that out of the 3 albums that I'm going to talk about on this video, this is the one I've listened to the most. So yeah, give this album a try because it's great. Now we go with the album released by Taiko Onuki. I am deeply sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Mignome, what an amazing album this is. This album is way more focused than the previous one we just talked about, because the thing is that the main focus of this album is jazz music, and it works perfectly with Taiko's voice. Not really much to say about this album though, because I can't really recall a particular song when I listen to this album. I listen to the full thing without looking at the playlist. Unlike Variety that has different genres mixed together, this album's main focus is this funky side of jazz music that I just love so much. And because I love it, I think that this album is technically better than Variety. The wonderful thing about this album is that somehow the music is just so timeless. This album was released in 1980, right? And you'd say, well, today it may sound outdated. You know, it sounds like a type of music that couldn't be released today. But I'm just sure that if this album wouldn't have been released in the 80s, but, you know, recently, in 2020, let's say, it would be as popular as it is today, because the way that she performs, there's a lot of high notes on this album, and not high notes like powerful notes, no. High, but still feels somewhat quiet, and it works so well with the whole jazz feeling behind the tracks. The production on a few of the songs is questionable, especially in the bass, because it sounds a bit too loud in a few of the songs. I don't know if I've heard a version that that isn't really well balanced, but I don't know. I just think that they could have done a better job producing this album, you know, mixing up the instruments together. But overall, I think this album is awesome. You know, 1980 was a really good year for music, and still this album stands out as one of the best, and not the best, but one of them. It's definitely my top 20. I love this album, and I think you should give it a try. I listened to this thing and I listened to it the whole way through. I don't focus on one song. I haven't even heard one of the songs in this album individually. So yeah, just go ahead, look it up on Spotify. I believe it's on Spotify or YouTube, and give it a try, because this album is great. An honorable mention before going into the album that I think it's the best example of this kind of music, by Mei Yamane, called Tosogare. I don't know if I said that wrong. I'm sorry if I did. The reason why I wanted to talk about this song is thanks to the wonderful guitar solo at the beginning of the track. For some reason, the track doesn't need it. I'm gonna be honest with you. The track is perfectly fine on its own. This track is 6 minutes plus. It's a really long track for this type of music, but it works thanks to that wonderful blues style guitar solo at the beginning of the track. So if you don't want to spend 45 minutes of your life listening to an album to, you know, be introduced into a new kind of music, then you should definitely listen to this song instead, because it's amazing. I love this song. Give it a try, come on. I'm a shapeshifter. Kako Mamilla released Love Trip in 1982, and ever since then has not released a single thing ever. And why, you ask? Well, I don't really know. And actually, it's quite mysterious, because for example, this album was on Spotify not too long ago, and it got taken down for some reason. And then the people who upload this album on YouTube for people to listen to it gets taken down after a while, you know. So it's weird. I don't know if it's her doing this. I don't know if it's the label. I don't know if it's the legal thing. But the thing is that maybe if enough time goes by, we won't be able to listen to this album on the internet. I know this is me just exaggerating, because once something is in the internet, it never goes away. I've learned that the hard way. But I don't know, I actually think it's curious, because she released this album. This album was really popular at the time. It wasn't a disappointment, like in the case of Vashtivunian, for example. This album did really well when it was released, because as I said, this kind of music was really hot back in the 80s. So why is this album so good in my opinion? Well, the thing is that every single song on this album could be at the ending of any anime ever. I'm gonna give you a few examples so you see that I'm not lying. It's so nice. It sets up the whole mood. Love Trip, the first track on this album, is the greatest example of this particular feeling, of this particular kind of music ever. So if you think you're gonna jump into this album and feel bored 5 minutes in, you're definitely wrong. The first track on this album will make you want to stay the whole thing through, only hoping that you will get another song as good as the opening track from this album. This has to be one of the most romantic and funky albums and feel-good albums ever made. If you leave this video right now, right, and go and listen to one of these albums, you'll know that I didn't say enough times the word funky, because that is what makes this music so good. And once again, especially today with anime being such a popular thing, I believe that you could release this album today and it will be as popular as this album was in 1982. If someone knows what happened to this woman and why didn't she release another album, please let me know in the comments, because I'm intrigued. What happened? Now, I can mention a few highlights of the album, but just listen to the whole thing, man. Listen to the whole thing. The titles are in Japanese anyway, so you're not gonna be focusing on one track in particular, because looking that shit up will be a mess. Great album, and I think it's offensive that I didn't find more of these songs on that YouTube playlist. That YouTube playlist has 11 million views. It doesn't have enough tracks from this album on that thing. You need more. I'm gonna make my own, actually. I'm gonna make my own Japanese city pop playlist, and I'm gonna upload it on this channel so you just see how good Japanese pop, city pop music can get. So if you ever come across this video, don't be misled by that playlist. If you want to know the greatest example of how good 80s Japanese music can get, listen to this album and you'll be in love without a question. So to close this video, I'm gonna put a few more examples of how good every single one of the songs fit into anime endings. That is it for today's video, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed it. It was fun doing this video. It's a little different from what I usually do. I know that I haven't uploaded many videos. I've uploaded like 30 by now, and not many people are watching them. But I know, I feel like I'm always doing the same thing, like ranking and then an album review and then a ranking. And I wanted to change up the pace a little bit. So introducing people to this kind of music, I think it's a great idea for a video, because not many people know how good music outside of America and UK can get. I think we must look beyond what we're used to, and I think this type of music is just perfect for it. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any other videos that I upload. Also, leave a comment down below if you've heard these albums, which one is your favorite, and if you haven't, go ahead and give them a try and then come back to the video and tell me how you like it. I guess I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye.